All right, I think we're live now. I think I had a few technical errors or challenges, but welcome to our, I guess this is our 8th Google Hangout. I'm Ian Scarrett, and today we have, are very pleased to have two guys from dcsquare, Dominic Obermeyer and Christian Gutz. So dcsquare and is famous for their Hive MQ product. Unfortunately, my colleague Benjamin Cave is not here with me, but Christian and Dominic, welcome, and hopefully you'll put up with me and without having Benjamin here. So thank you for coming on board. So can you tell me, why don't we just first start off and talk about kind of what's DC squared and Hive MQ all about? Why don't you give us a quick introduction?
Yeah, sure. So hi from our side, and thanks for having us, Ian. We at dcsquare are specialized in developing IoT applications for customers. Therefore, one of our products is Hive MQ, as you already said. Hive MQ is an MQTT broker built for the enterprise. And we're also doing a lot of consulting work based on Hive MQ in the IoT space. Okay. So, and also we are doing a lot of things around this, doing speaking and writing at conferences and articles and magazines and so on. Yep.
Yeah, I see you guys showing up at a lot of conferences talking about IoT and MQTT. It's great to have.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard to manage all these different conferences.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time in hotels, don't you?
Yeah, the IoT scene in Germany is small, but it's growing every day, and yeah, things like or protocols like MQT gain lots of interest. And recently, when we started doing conferences and talks about MQTT, it was really funny. There were a few people in the room, but now the rooms are packed because this really gains interest, which is really
for sure. For sure. Yeah. So let's tell me a bit more about Hive MQ. So what differentiates Hive MQ and kind of I know things like WebSockets. You've been spending a lot of time in WebSockets, and you've got a sandbox server up there. So let's talk a bit more about Hive MQ and how people can try it out, and why should people try it out?
Yeah, Hive MQ is a high performance MQTT server which is used for mostly for larger scale installations. So if you really have to scale beyond thousands of connections, so if you go in the hundreds of thousands of connections and devices, then Hive MQ is a pretty good fit because it actually scales for that. And we support unique features which we really built for real world problems we had. So with clustering. We have, of course, support for security, so SSL or TLS, and also authentication. And we have a permission, a very detailed permission model which people can implement for their applications. And Hive MQ itself is all about scalability and integratability because we have an open source plugin system, so people can just take the code, take example plugins, write their own plugins, their own integrations, integrate it to Windows Azure Cloud or Amazon Cloud, and with the products there. So also with other protocols, and so it's really an MQTT broker built for real world applications.
Good. So in terms of security, because I know kind of every conference I go to, everyone will say, "Oh, IoT security," and no one ever. They'll say yes, it's a big problem, but no one actually has an answer. But it sounds like you guys have an answer with Hive MQTT. So let's talk a bit more. What's so it's just straight up SSL and TLS?
No, I think there are different kinds of security. Of course, there's transport level security, which is important. SSL, TLS is very important, and use it if you can. But sometimes you can't, and this is one of the main criticisms MQTT got recently, because people say, it's not secure. Well, that's actually not true. It depends on what you try to do. MQTT itself has username password in the protocol level itself, but obviously this only works if you have SSL or TLS, because otherwise an eavesdropper could read the username and password, and this was it.
Sure.
In many scenarios we have, also customers they have their hardware they're deploying to the field, in their own hands. So they do the provisioning, and the cool thing is if you can do this, you can use with certificates. So you can use clients, SSL client certificate authentication, for instance, and this gets more secure. And if you can do this, HiveMQ has some goodies on top of that. You can use the certificate to use for transport authentication, and can do a permission model based on that. So let's say if you have device A in the field, can publish to topic A, but only subscribe to topic B, and all based on this certificate. And you can also mix this up with username and password authentication and stuff like that.
Right.
And of course, there's another layer of security which you could probably need. This is encryption. So MQTT itself is payload agnostic. So your payload can be anything. It can be a string, it can be an image, it can be just a byte array.
Right.
And yeah, what we have seen very often is that people encrypt their payload in the MQTT message itself. The MQTT message isn't encrypted in this case, but the payload. So this adds another level of security.
Okay.
And what we mostly see is people write for when you're using HiveMQ, they write their own plugins with the database, with their, as some people even use an LDAP for the devices, and integrate with that, or even integrate with web service. We have, for instance, a plugin with the guys from Stormpath. They provide a REST API for authentication, and you can even integrate it with things like that. So
interesting. Yeah. So really, kind of your, I think it makes perfect sense. Kind of your security solution is kind of make it pluggable, plug it into your existing security solution, like, and take advantage of that. It sounds like.
Yeah. So that's basically one principle we applied all over HiveMQ, that you can, with the open plugin system, you can plug in wherever you want when receiving messages or doing other stuff, or when the broker starts up, and you can do your own stuff based on your application, and can customize the broker in any way.
Yep. No, this sounds great. So, so actually, we have 6 viewers. So if anyone has a question, just put it into the Q&A chat, and we'll definitely try and get to them. So, how about, can you guys talk a bit about? I think we in the IoT industry need to talk more about use cases and kind of where MQTT and Hive MQ would fit in kind of the best. Like so I don't know if you guys believe this or not, but in my opinion, MQTT is not going to solve everyone's problems. That other protocols are going to be important in IoT. So where do you see MQTT shine, and kind of what are your customers doing? What's their typical architecture and use case?
Yeah, MQTT shines most when you really have push messaging. That means if you want a push-based model, and for instance, telemetry works also very great. This is where MQTT comes from, actually. And so we've seen MQTT, we've seen it very much in the automotive industry. This is a very, very huge use case, also for the connected car stuff. And simply because they need very scalable stuff.
And so what type of information are they pushing from the car?
Telemetry data. So these are the car itself has gigabytes of data to send, but only interesting data should be published, and also the data plans aren't very, very cool, at least in Germany.
Yeah.
Data plans are still very expensive, but
well, they're not as expensive as Canada. Trust me, I'm sure.
Okay. Another use case we have seen recently, and which we find very interesting, is smart home applications. And I think it's a really good fit because with the publish-subscribe model of MQTT, it's very extensible, and you can just drop in new things which can talk MQTT, and you can let them intercommunicate without hassle. Just plug them in. But it's a very interesting use case. Also, we have seen some really cool stuff like customers from the education sector, and they do connect yeah, smartphones with the tables where the teachers are writing in and writing stuff and stuff like that. So MQTT is in many things. Yeah, you don't believe that it's in, because it's a very tiny, small protocol, and it's very adaptable. This is one of the main principles of MQTT, and this is what I think many people get wrong or yeah, understand wrong. Because MQTT itself gives you a solid framework for your applications. It doesn't solve, as I already said, it isn't the silver bullet for every IoT communication. But
Right.
there are many scenarios where you can benefit from using MQTT, and you don't have to reinvent it.
Good. So if we go back to the connected car, and so why wouldn't they just use HTTP? Kind of like, or another protocol that's out there?
I think it depends. HTTP itself, yes, it's very verbose. It's actually, it is used, HTTP, but if you need some push communication, HTTP is the wrong choice. If you're doing yeah, request response, or if your scenario needs request response communication, HTTP may be a good fit, but there are other protocols like co-op, which could be a better fit when we're talking about IoT.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think one of the things that kind of I've seen people knock MQTT on is scalability. That it just won't scale. So, and you guys are claiming that Hive MQ scales quite nicely. So so let's talk about it. So what to you what scale mean? How do you define scale, and how high do you see MQTT and Hive MQ scaling up? And then why do you think people think it doesn't scale?
Yeah, why people think it doesn't scale? So first, how to scale MQTT? The problem which people see, it's how to scale MQTT. The principle is in MQTT, it's that simple for clients to implement MQTT clients. Writing MQTT clients is very easy, and this is right. I think one of the huge success factors of MQTT. But yeah, people are right. It isn't easy to write MQTT broker, and yeah, and it's hard to write MQTT broker which scales.
And so why is it hard? Why is it hard?
One of the hard things is MQTT. You have yeah, push mechanism, so you have to maintain a connection to all your devices all the time. So if you're scaling to 1 million devices, you have to maintain 1 million connections. And yeah, if you just have one server, this may be a problem, because you won't scale a server, at least not today, to 1 billion connections.
Right.
This won't work. So yeah, this doesn't work. Also, one of the main criticisms is with the quality of service levels. MQTT defines 3 quality of service levels: quality of service 0, 1, and 2. 0 means fire and forget. This is pretty easy. Quality of service 1 is the message arrives at least once at the client, and quality of service 2 means every message arrives exactly once at the target. And yeah, this is hard to scale because when talking about distributed systems, many bad things can happen. And so it's if you are clustering, for instance, which is Hive MQ, you have to figure out, okay, what happens if this connection drops and this message is sent and this isn't sent. So you have to maintain state. And yeah, this is a problem. This is a hard problem. And yeah, and I see why many people have problems integrating this in other products, which yeah. Already.
And so how does Hive MQ do it? Just good engineering, good German engineering?
No. What we essentially do, we do replicate most of the state which is needed. So it is decided when to replicate which state and which data to which nodes. So okay. And we get really yeah, wide, and we get can scale to hundreds of thousands of connections with that.
I think
I was going to ask you, what do you scale up to? What can Hive MQ scale up to?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can scale up to hundreds of thousands of connections. So at least that we have seen that Our own benchmark, it really depends on how we define the benchmarks. In real world scenarios, we've seen hundreds of thousands of connections. Yeah, our benchmarks are a bit more promising, but I don't think so real world scenarios yet. So, but hundreds of thousands of connections is this what our customers do.
Actually, we should probably try and figure out how to have an industry benchmark that any MQTT implementation could use.
Yeah, definitely. To have a comparison.
Good. All right. So is there anything else that we should talk about a Hive MQ or MQTT, or we could usually Benjamin and I kind of talk about some of the things at the end about kind of what we're seeing in the IoT industry. So we could switch to that, or do you think we've kind of covered everything around Hive MQ that makes it a great MQTT solution?
We can give a bit more cool stuff about Hive MQ.
Sure.
So one thing which HiveMQ really excels is the MQTT or WebSocket support.
Right.
So one really cool thing about MQTT is that it brings the hardware devices into the web with MQTT over WebSockets. So this means that the MQTT messages are basically put into WebSocket frames and then sent to the browser. There is also the Poho JavaScript library, which then you can use that messages in the browser. So HiveMQ implements that natively, so you can just connect with the web browser to HiveMQ and don't have to do any plugin stuff or HTTP server middle of that, and so you can directly use that. And also a lot of people or developers are using HiveMQ because of that. Because they just want to get to work with the WebSockets and don't want to do some special configuration and so on.
Yep.
So, and there is one very important principle which we built into HiveMQ, that everything is as easy as possible. So you take HiveMQ, download it, start it, maybe one or two configuration to adapt to your setup, and then you're good to go. So, and also with the documentation, you have something to look up within you. It's very easy for your developer to get this information.
Yep. Good. Cool. All right. So I guess where do people get more information about Hive MQ?
So of course there is the HiveMQ website, which is www.hivemq.com. There we also have demo applications, and you can download HiveMQ and getting started guides and so on. Okay.
So we'll add some links to the Google event, this hangout, afterwards for people. So let's kind of switch gears. So what are you guys doing out in the IoT community? What are some of the things that you're seeing and kind of want to point out of interest to people?
So yeah, basically we're doing a lot of different stuff, like we mentioned before, the magazines and the conferences, and we also are writing a recurring article in the Eclipse magazine, where we present all the Eclipse projects. So we want to just tell everybody what cool stuff is around and which can be used. And yeah, actually there is really a lot of interest in these things, and also new events and stuff is forming to have a better exchange of information between all these different industries, which are which are part of the IoT, like from the hardware side to the software side and so on. So there are really interesting events and stuff going on.
Yeah. Actually, I was at an event last week in Palo Alto in California called IoT World, and I think two things that struck me is, one, just kind of back to the MQT conversation, is there's a number of vendors there that have a kind of IoT middleware or IoT platforms, and they all had MQTT support in it. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see, kind of back to your initial comments about in the early days, you do an MQTT presentation, you have 2 or 3 people now in the audience. Now kind of you do it, they're packed, and also it seems like if you're going to have an IoT middleware solution, MQTT support is kind of one of these items that you have to do. So I thought that was important. And the other thing I think to Christian, your point is at IoT World, it's and this is what fascinates me about the whole industry, is that this mixture of hardware and software coming together really creates some interesting dynamics and conversations at these events. So it's nice to see, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that going forward. Certainly at EclipseCon Europe, we're going to be focused on that coming up in October. So that should be fun.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing that I think we should just mention is Poho, the Eclipse Poho project, which is the MQT clients, been very successful, and they celebrated their 1.0 release. So that was hats off to them, and congratulations to them. They exit the Eclipse incubation process. And I think let me see if I can remember, they have a JavaScript, C, Java, Python client.
I have a Lua client and a Go client, I think.
Yeah, but I don't think those are part of the 1.0 release.
Yeah,
I think yeah. So they do have the language, but I don't think they made it into the 1.0 release.
Okay, but yeah. I think they're available from their source repository, but
Yeah. So with the next release, hopefully they'll get there. But the Poho project's been making some great progress.
Yeah, it's also great to see. We do a lot of talks about Poho and about the JavaScript library for WebSocket stuff, which is very cool to demonstrate always. And and the Java client, and we really like the Java client. It's rock solid. It just works, and the API is simple. As it should be. So we're very excited about the 1.0 release, and to bring this in production.
For sure. So, all right. Well, thank you both. It was great to learn more about Hive MQ and chat more about just where MQTT is going in the industry, and certainly on the scalability and security side. So thank you, and have a great weekend. Actually, I'm going on vacation after today, so I'm going to enjoy my weekend.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Bye bye.
Bye.